but everybody's staring for days. All they see is just a young, pretty face. But I'm trying to get to know you much better. Don't matter how much time it will take, but there's something you're trying to hide. There's something you're keeping inside. But I'm trying to get to know you much better. Don't matter how much time it will take.
Hello and welcome to I Am That Gurl Podcast. I am your host, Marquetta DeVille, and I am coming to you with another episode of I Am That Gurl Podcast. Today, we have the lovely Coach Amber J joining us, and we will be discussing embracing the new you with confidence. Today, Amber will be joining us and giving us some life experiences that maybe you or I can take away to walk in our confidence. So as we add Coach Amber J, I want you guys to know that I'm That Gurl Podcast is here. We have amazing conversations with women doing great in their respective fields. Hello, Coach Amber J. How are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing amazing. So excited to be on here today.
Same here. I know it's been a long time coming for us to connect from season 1 to your podcast, but here we are today, right? Yes. Same here. So as I get adjusted, I'm like, whoa, I didn't plan for the but nevertheless, we are here and thank you for joining me. So today's podcast is called Embracing Change with Confidence. And girl, you are the queen of rocking in confidence. I watch you. I love it. I watch your social media. So you just, man, we'll get right into it. So if you could give us a little bit of your bio and let's talk about how you, because we all know you don't just wake up one morning and be like, okay, I'm walking in confidence, right? So how was your journey? And tell us a little bit about who Coach Amber J is.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That really inspires me because you never know who's watching you and who you're encouraging along the way. So I'm Coach Amber J. I am a transitional life coach, wardrobe expert, author, speaker, and mentor. And I started coaching in 2016. My journey began with myself. I became a coach because of my own journey. In 2013, I was in the middle of I wouldn't say we were yet in a divorce, but we were in a moment of separating. And in that moment, I realized like there had to be more to life than just being a wife and a mother and working someone else's job. And I remember waking up one day and I was like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, I feel like there's so much more to life than what I've experienced or what I've been through. And so one day I just woke up and I just went on a soul search of finding who I was without a title, who I was without who I was outside without being looking within out myself. And so I started to look within myself, and it took me on this journey of really like removing so many layers of myself, so many layers of what other people told me, so many layers of what my family told me I should be or couldn't be. And so that was the beginning of me walking into my purpose. And as I began to remove layer after layer, it led me up into divorcing my ex-husband because we were not aligned anymore. And sometimes we get in relationships or situations because of belief systems or trauma bonds or soul ties. And so as I began on this journey of really discovering who I was, I realized I was not living my authentic self. I was not being my authentic self. And that's kind of what led me into coaching and really getting into who am I and what was I called here to do? And that is literally like the beginning of Coach Amber J. It led me to moving to Las Vegas And here in Las Vegas is when I really found purpose. In 2013 to 2014, I really started to just uncover. I found a coach online. Actually, I just started looking for things and answering questions like, how do you find yourself? How do you become confident? How do you become feminine? And so I just went on this research of finding these things, and I came across a coach. Her name was Chanel Cooper Sykes, and I like binge watched every YouTube video. I started to follow her, and she was really big on authenticity and about self and about confidence, and also giving purpose and also sharing her gifts with other people. And all my life, I have always been the person that people go to for solutions. Like, this is the problem, and I'm going to find a solution to it. And I realized following this woman that this is something that I've always done. So, fast forward to 2015, I moved to Vegas, and I heard God so clearly tell me coaching. And I was like, God, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, I'm in the middle of a divorce. At this time, I was literally me and my 3 sons. Staying with a friend because I just took a leap of faith and moved here to Vegas. Had no clue. I've been in property management since I was 18. So God showed me this key, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get into real estate, and I'll continue doing property management. And he's like, no, I have something else for you. And that's kind of when I found coaching. And so the journey into me becoming a coach was me finding myself and me identifying who I was, removing layers, opinions, beliefs, stripping down to my core of who I was. And that is literally what pivoted me into walking into the boldness and confidence of myself, because everything that we need is already within us. We just have to be brave enough to look within and say, who am I and who do I want to become? And in that journey, I decided I want to create this phenomenal woman that I never seen, but I knew was within me, and be what I could be myself and free other people and becoming their selves. And that's kind of the journey of how Coach Amber J got started.
Amazing. You have such a testimony. Like, I know some of your story, but it's so funny, in the years that we've known each other, I've never asked what led you on your journey of coaching, and you have a phenomenal story. So I know sharing it I'm inspired just by the 30 seconds to a minute that you just gave us today. So that is amazing. And it's so funny. I recently took a communication class. And so one of our speeches in communication, we talked about how do you pivot into who you are truly meant to be. And so to hear your story of just discovering who you are, and now you're helping so many other people, it just goes back to the Bible study of how God will give you certain things to become your testimony. And we wonder how you like, God, why me? Why am I going through this? When you get married, you never expect to go through a divorce, or when you especially once, you start to have children in the marriage. And so you want maybe what you had or what you didn't have growing up. So we try to stick the situations out. But when it becomes evident and you have to move on from what you thought your life should be, you move into what God has called you to be. But sometimes we have to go through things to get there, but he'll bless us in it, right? So, going through a divorce, relocating, living with somebody, with your children, to now today be the successful transitional life coach that you are. So we thank you, God, for the unknown, for us to walk in his purpose for our lives. So other thing is, I was just listening on I want to say Sunday. My husband and I were watching this television show, and they were talking about walking into your purpose and the things that you have to go through in order to be able to truly help somebody in their purpose, you're like, oh God, well, how much more do I gotta go through? But the reward is great, right? You
Yeah.
never thought that you would be a life coach. You never
Not
thought,
at all.
and I'm pretty sure it took a hit to your confidence just having to go through something like that. So, one of the things is, if you guys are watching today, ladies, if you are watching today, sometimes we can be very prideful, but continue to listen in to this show and make sure you share it with somebody, because we are having a real deal conversation with somebody who's been there, done that, came out, pressed down, burnt in the fire, and check out the diamond that she is today. I love it. That is so amazing. And oh gosh, let's jump into a little bit more of your journey and your story. And let's talk about, we talked about how your journey and your passion for what you do has gotten you to where you are today. Quick question. What are some common barriers that prevent individuals from embracing change and stepping into their power, their confidence?
I want to say, for me, and especially for a lot of my clients that I service, a lot of it is that hinders them the most is holding on to what happened to them, holding on to unforgiveness. That is like the root cause that stagnates so many people into their purpose, because especially what the Bible says is, to how much you forgive someone else, God will forgive you. That also comes with how much too much is given, much is required. And sometimes you go through some very hard, treacherous things, and you forget that it's not people, it's just kind of like what God allows you to go through to get to that next step. And sometimes we'll hold on to like what happened to us, not realizing it was for us, not to us. And I think for especially women, I think that we hold such a grudge and an anger and it's so hard to let go of what happened to us, that we become the victim in our story instead of allowing our circumstances, our situation, to make us the victors in our story. And so without letting go, it's the hardest thing, because we cannot move forward. It's like trying to move forward and you got like bags and loads of bricks you're carrying, and you're trying to move to that next phase, but you just can't make it because you're holding on to so much. So I would say the biggest barrier is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness for sure. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's a tough one, because we all deal, as much as we want to say that we forgive people, unforgiveness causes trauma, right? Or
Yes.
I won't say unforgiveness, the situation, that the trauma that comes from that situation, and then there begins to develop triggers, right? And
Yep.
so certain things I can contest, just being in relationships or friendships or being part of families, like certain things you want to distinguish, like, am I going down that same path? So
Right.
if you could say, somebody out there is saying right now, how do I forgive, right? How do I let go and not drag this trauma on with me, or this trigger? How do I not make my situation a trigger? I know that wasn't one of the questions we talked about,
Yeah.
but
It's
just
okay.
going with the flow, like from your
Yeah.
experience, how do you not make, even if, if you got in a relationship today, there was something about your previous relationship that you walked away, right? And so how do you not take that same trauma or that same situation into your next situation? If you say you forgive, right? How do
Right.
you not take it on?
So the first thing, which is probably the hardest thing that most people can't even fathom to understand, is forgiveness is not about the other person at all. And so we have to be willing to be accountable. So one of the things that I measured my relationship with my ex-husband and being able to forgive him and walk away was being accountable that when I chose to marry him, it was based off of my stuff. Like I didn't want to be a victim of circumstances, right? I didn't want to be another
Mm-hmm.
baby mama. I didn't, because when I met my ex-husband, I had already had a son. So I was like, oh, I cannot give, not just have another baby. Like I need to be a wife, and I was in church very heavy at that time. So I was like, I cannot be, all of these things that other people would tell you, like, feeling like a hypocrite because I'm not married or shacking up. So I had all of these belief systems that I created. So I married him based off of those things, not because
Mm-hmm.
we were aligned for one another, not because we were equally yoked. It had nothing to do with that. So when I came into the realization and took accountability for me, like I married him out of trauma, right? And
Mm.
so the first thing that I would suggest, and it's hard, is to be accountable. Like I had to be accountable that I married him. I made this decision based off of my stuff. And now that I'm accountable, now I have to be able to say, you know what? I forgive him and I forgive myself and I release him because I kind of did this on my own. This was not God. This was not like aligned to my purpose, but I have to
Mm.
be accountable. And so a lot of times forgiveness, first of all, comes from within. You have to say, okay, I have to release him so I can move forward. I have to release
Right.
myself so I can move forward. So I would say, one, accountability, and then two, remembering that forgiveness is not about the other person. Like, yes, there was things that he did that caused the relationship to be worse, but the bottom line, or the undertone of even why we got married, wasn't even in the right standing. It wasn't on a good foundation. It was based off of my trauma. And then that takes a lot of courage to look at your situation and say, man, I helped create this trauma. I helped
Mm.
create this craziness. And now I have to be accountable and go back and look at those things and realize, what role did I play in it, and then release it from that point of view. Because standing on it from an accountability place removes you from being the victim. Because I could easily
Mm.
say, well, he did this and he did that and did it, but I didn't want to stay stuck. I didn't want to
Right.
be bound. So it took me saying, let me be honest with myself. Like, I married him for all the wrong reasons, right? Like, it wasn't based
Mm-hmm.
off of love. It wasn't based off of, a true companionship and true alignment. And so that took a lot for me to go back and look at why and where I was at my life in that time, because I didn't know who I was. So I just was like, okay, I'm with this man. You're supposed to get married. This is what society tells you you're supposed to do.
Right.
But it didn't align to what God wanted for me. It didn't align to the things. But I'm grateful I experienced it, because now I can share my story of, like, I know what it feels like to be in a marriage where you don't feel like this is your person, right? I know what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like to have to break up your family. And not only that, be honest enough with yourself. Like, that's the hardest part, is really being honest. Like, girl, you came into this all messed up. Like, you didn't even
Right.
deal with your mama trauma, your daddy trauma, your
Oh.
abandonment issues. Like, I came into this marriage with all kind of messed up things. But it took me really to be honest and accountable with my own actions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they say, when you know better, you do better.
You
But
do better. Right.
you gotta know and go back and be accountable for the times you didn't, and that's the hard part.
I can only imagine. So one question that I would want to ask you today. So I know you probably get this often. What is the difference between a life coach and a actual therapist?
So it's a great question you asked that. So I like to call a coach, or give an example of a coach, just like a baseball or football coach. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's someone that comes along with you where you are, right? Where you are in your life, or where you are in your abilities, and we help move you forward. With
Mm-hmm.
therapy, a lot of times it's more about the beginning of where you started, you kind of go backwards. It's not really accountability. It's really more identifying some of the traumas that you've experienced and helping you process through those. And coaching is more like, let me meet you here. Let me help you identify why you're stuck in here and help move you forward. So I believe they go hand in hand, but therapy, I would say, more deals on the trauma of how you got where you are and where it started from, like kind of getting to the root of it. Coaching takes you from where you are to where you want to go.
Okay,
Got
it. It does. And I know you shared that with someone, and we also talked about when we were at United Way, and we talked about there's so many coaches popping up around town, and I love how you explained what sets you apart from many other coaches in town. Can you share that with us today?
Yeah, so I believe coaching, you have to be the example. Like you have to be doing the work. You need to be healing. Like I don't preach nothing I haven't done. Every program that I've created, it's because I actually went through it. Like a coach, not saying that you can't go through things, because even I feel like the Lord gave me transition as a coach. And transition is just changes being processed all the time, but you have to be willing to do the process. And I see a lot of coaches with titles, but where is your transformation starting within yourself? Like I believe a coach should be able to live by their testimony. Like these are the steps I've took. This is what I'll do to help you get to where you're going. How, not saying you can't lead someone to another level, but how far can you get someone if you haven't gone there first? And so to me, that's really important as a coach, is like, we can talk all we want to talk. You can have all the marketing and the lingo and the lango, but show me the transformation. And transformation starts within. And that's really important to me, is like any client of mine, you're going to know you work with me because you're going to see an immediate transformation in your life. That's to me what sets me apart.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, so you just kind of explained what gave you. So was it transitional life coaching because of your experience, or is that, yeah?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I got a certification just to be a life coach, because life coaching doesn't give you a specific title unless you maybe go to business coaching. But the coaching that I went through, it was just direct life coaching. And so in the process of me getting my certification, afterwards, I was like, okay, God, well, what part of my life coaching am I giving? Like, I need to nail down an area where I can see transformation. And that's when he gave me transitional coaching. And I was like, well, what is a transitional coach? Like, and then he started to show me my own story. Like, you went through a divorce, right? You relocated to Las Vegas. You started from new. You left your corporate job to a business. Those are all life transitions, and some of them are good, but you still had to process through them. And so he started to give me a formula on how do you process. Even good change still has to be processed or identified. And sometimes when they're not processed, you get stuck and stagnant. So you either self-sabotage, or you don't go no further, or you go back to your comfort zone. And so God just began to show me how to teach people in the middle of a transition, these are the steps to keep you moving forward. And that's kind of where transition came in from.
I love it. I'm like, man, once I stepped into who I am, I should have had a transitional life coach, because it can get very like, you can be, and you can prevent yourself from being where you're meant to go, because it's different. One of the quotes I talked about my communication class, one of the quotes that I pulled from my communication class a couple weeks ago, it was one of the, oh gosh, I forget who said it. So we're going to say unknown author, but they talked about facing your fear daily until you no longer fear it is how you will reach success. And it is scary transitioning out of your comfort zone, especially like for me, I began to transition into what the world has seen me as, pretty much all of my life. And so, as you know, over the past couple of years, I stepped into coming from behind the scenes and embracing Marquetta DeVille in front of the scenes. And so it's still a very scary situation. So hold me accountable, because I need to connect with you myself and not continue to let past fears hold me back and move forward. So I personally need to transition on a positive note and walk in my confidence in so many areas of my life. So I'm glad we're having this conversation today. And I know.
Really quick. Before you go forward, I want to say too, I want to give you such kudos and such acknowledgement, because I have seen you like pivot in such a phenomenal way, and I'm so proud of you, because I've seen you like kind of behind the scenes and you still go forward. I've seen, you know, when you first started doing the brunches, it was kind of like highlighting other people, and you have just like branched into this phenomenal blossoming flower. So sometimes even in that, like, we have to give ourselves credit and acknowledge like how much you've grown in these past years. And I just have to say, like, as you watch me, I'm watching you, and I'm like, yes, girl, so thank you.
And that's why you need accountability people to say, hey, I see you doing well. Like, because sometimes to be totally transparent, the people you expect to give you that boost are not gonna always be those. But it's great to be on as a past cheerleader. I've cheerleaded for 15 years, growing up from the age of 5 to 20. I was a cheerleader. And so when you think back on cheering, like, half the time, you knew like the star football player, you probably knew the quarterback, but that whole defensive line that keeps people from scoring, or the whole offensive line, like, we may not know those people, but we're out there cheering them on. And we may never have a conversation with any of them, and they're not the highlight of the team, but then they have a squad of 15 to 20 cheerleaders saying, hold that line, you can do it. So that's what your community is to you. They're your cheerleaders, like, that keep you going. So I appreciate it. Like I say too often, I'm like, I'm horrible at sharing certain things that people do with me. I gotta do better. Let me just say that. But I'm like, that's how we build one another's businesses up. I just did a conference, and I'm like, dang, this person took part, and this person took part, and this person took part, and I not forgot. It's not my normal. Like, I appreciate you, and I show my appreciation because I come back and I re-support your business. If you did balloons or you cooked or something, like, I'm gonna keep supporting your business, but I'll share your business, but I forgot to a lot of times to publicly cheer you on and say, hey, this person did an amazing job, to share my excitement like that. So I appreciate you sharing with me today. Another question for you. Look, we're not going to get into a crying session this morning.
right. Not this session.
Right, not this time. So can you talk about the importance, which we've already talked about this, but I want to talk about it on a different level. Like, we talk about cheerleaders, but it's also important to have like mentors and coaches, and every coach needs a coach. Every mentor needs a mentor. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of that in your own personal journey, as well as what you do in your business?
Yeah, so I actually, like I said, when I first went on to this discovery of finding myself, I found an online coach, and as I was able to build myself up in my finances, I actually hired that coach, and I got to work with her for a short amount of time. But I've had a coach this whole journey, because a coach is someone I believe a coach needs a coach, and we can only get to as far as we know how. And then we need to be able to have someone that has more expertise with us, more experience and knowledge that can take you to that next level. So I've had through my whole journey, I've always had a coach. I also have always had a therapist because as I pour out to people, I need someone to pour back into me. And I need to also be doing my own self care. I need to make sure that I'm constantly healing because a lot of times I think we forget that we're all still human on different levels. And it's unfortunate that sometimes we put people on pedestals and we see them as they're higher than us or they're better than us. I love that quote that says, more money, more problems. And it's very true because the more that you know, the more that you give, the more that you are doing, the more you need to be poured into, the more that you need to be able to overflow. And for me, I see a lot of times people or elite leaders forget that they need to do the same work that they're telling their clients to do. So if you are a coach and you don't have a coach, I don't know how significant or how powerful you will be to me because you're not even leading by your own example. And so,
Mm.
coaches, mentors, therapists, we all need somebody that can pour into us as we're pouring out and also elevate us because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if you ever stop learning, you stop growing. And so you need to
Right.
be constantly educating yourself. Classes, courses, coaches, therapists, like they are so vital to be able to pour into you and help elevate you to the next level.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But we can't give all of the tea away today on our episode. So I do want people to follow you. But I do have one last question for you this morning. Um, as we navigate, because we know this season 2 is all about the it girl era, women walking in their it girl era. So as we navigate the it girl era, what are your thoughts on the key qualities or skills that will empower individuals to thrive in this transformation era?
Whew, I would say, in order for you to step into the boldness, the confident, the authentic you, is to get real with you. Let's stop walking around with these masks and say, I'm all of that because I look the part, but your heart is ugly. You treat people bad. Like, let's really be authentic and remove the layers and start to heal. You cannot be who you're called to be operating from an ugly space, jealousy, envy, anger, bitterness. Let's heal and stop bleeding on people who did not cut you. So for you to walk in the bold, confident,
Mm, I
loving,
like that. Wait, hold on. Say it
amazing,
again. Let's not bleed on who.
bleed on people who did not cut you. Like, you mad at me, sis, because I'm bomb, because you, like, stop that jealousy. Like, you could just
Right.
be as amazing and joyful and happy and loving as anyone else, but you got to do the work, sis. Like, you
Right.
can't be bleeding on me because somebody hurt you. Like, I ain't
Right.
do it. So
Yes,
let's
I
stop
like
bleeding
that.
on people. Let's start doing the work. Stop putting a band-aid on that cut. Go get
Mm-hmm.
stitches, go heal, and really be heard, because that's what it takes, is looking in the mirror and in your own eyes, looking at you and saying, girl, I'm proud of you, sis. I love you.
Right.
And the more you can
Right.
look at you and cheer you on, you can cheer other people on. So that's how you really become that girl. Like, really
Okay.
healing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love you. You're amazing.
Thank
I
you.
thank you so much for coming on. But I cannot let us, I know I said that was the last question, but this is like my iconic question that I ask every lady that is on I Am That Girl podcast. Amber J, Coach Amber J, what would you tell the younger you?
Whew, I would tell the younger you to keep going. Don't give up.
Mm.
Keep going. Don't give up. It may get hard. It is scary, but keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I love it. We are going to keep going. So I know we gave out a lot of information today, and I Thank you. Like my heart is full. Like I feel like I
Oh,
can
thank
go
you.
conquer the day. Like I just had my
Yes.
own personal coaching session.
Yes. Awesome.
But before we leave today, can you share how my listening audience can stay in touch with you and connect with you for that transitional life coaching session that we all truly need? There's nobody that's not transitioning in some way or form. Myself personally, my daughter just graduated from college, so
Yeah.
that's a transition.
A
Like you
huge
go,
transition.
yes. It's
Yeah.
empty nesting. It's so funny because I
Empty
had
nesting.
Tierra Flynn. She's a doula, and she was talking about how women actually go through um postpartum depression during the time of the kids leaving home, and you beginning to
Yeah.
have an empty nest. I'm like, girl, really? I've never heard of that, but I
Yeah.
believe you, right? Because that's your
Yes.
profession and you know what you're talking about. So I
Yeah.
might be calling you like, girl, I'm going through postpartum
Well, it's a
with this
real
22
thing.
year old.
Well, it's really called empty nesting because you're
Hmm.
transitioning from, so it's a real thing. I have coached
Right.
several clients on empty nesting because they're like, well, what do I do now? Like, I've been a mother for 20 years or 18. It's a
Yes.
real thing. And unfortunately, in our community, it's really not talked about, but it's a very real thing. And it's so important that we process through that as well. Like you said, it's another life transition, and a
Hmm.
lot of times we have to redefine our purpose in this season. And that's what empty nesting really is all about. So I'm definitely here for you. I really am grateful. And yes, we stay connected. So I'm definitely here to assist you in this transition. But you can find me on Coach Amber J on all platforms. I do offer free 15-minute discovery calls. I'm sorry, 30-minute discovery calls. So if you want to say, hey, I want to try out coaching. Maybe I need to ask some questions. Maybe let me see if Amber is the right coach for me. I do give a free 30-minute discovery call. You can book on my website at coachamberj.com. I also have a book. So if you guys want some tips and tools on how I transitioned through some of the hard times in my life, you can go on Amazon and get the book. It's under Amber Jones. It is called The Key. You are the master key. But until then, I'm on all platforms, so you can connect with me on any of those.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being with us,
Thank
Coach
you.
Amber J. And I will
Thank
definitely
you.
be connecting with you. To the listening audience, thank you so much for tuning in today to I'm That Girl Podcast. We're embracing change with confidence with our very own Las Vegas transitional life coach, Coach
Thank
Amber
you.
J. Because I said Las Vegas, she can help you in any city, but she's
Yeah.
our Vegas baby. She's our Vegas transitional life coach. This show is being sponsored by DeVille Realty Group, Nevada's largest Black-owned real estate company. You can reach DeVille Realty Group at 702-787-7559 or at DeVille Realty Group on all social media platforms. Until next week, we will see you and have a amazing rest of your weekend, an amazing week. And we will be back here next week at 8 a.m. on I Am That Girl Podcast. Love you, Las
Love
Vegas.
you.